Now, the greatest idea of all time. Stay tuned for
From the Trenches of Hollywood.
Here are your guru guides from the A-list to the D and everything in between. It's Ted and Craig.
Welcome to From the Trenches of Hollywood. I am Ted Davies.
Hey everybody, Craig Hall here. Thanks for joining us. This is great to be back with you.
And yeah, we are glad to be back. We got a lot to cover today. And yeah, let's get to it. Craig, what do you got on the plate?
Hey, well, again, it's exciting to be with you. Great response to the first show. Thanks for streaming. Again, we're available on Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show, as well as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Right, you'll find us on all these spots as well. And
it's
questions came in, which were great comments. We were asking for those. So, like we say, this show is all about writers talking with writers about writing, hoping to inform, inspire, and answer your questions along the way. So be sure and reach out to us with your questions and your comments. We really want to assist you in any way we can. As we said in the first show, that together we've got quite a bit of experience, but we come from a pool of folks who that we can lean on, and if we can't answer your question, maybe they can. So let's get into some of the questions. What do we got?
Okay, from Mr. Ryan, we have first off, it's a statement, but then he answers it with asks it with a question. I feel like I'm a good storyteller, but I can't get past the fear of doing it on camera. Just can't get started. Can you talk about that at some point? Can you help me? So, I mean, there's a couple ways to address that. I mean, the power of what we've got right now with audio versus visual is dramatic, in this time, So what I'm thinking is that we live in a time right now that audio is such a great tool right now. Podcasting doesn't have to be on YouTube, right, Craig? I mean, it's the voice is more powerful sometimes than the visual, I think. So sometimes the visual is distracting.
Yeah, it can be. Look, so I'm assuming that you are. He wants to be an oral history storyteller, right? Which is great. Now, I'm wondering if he does this already in front of people, which
I'm sure
the camera is sometimes easier than in front of an audience. I think that you should maybe start, like you said, start with just recording the audio and get comfortable with telling the story in front of a mic. Maybe find a director to work with. A director really can make a difference. And
it does help.
And it's like I mentioned on the last show, that it takes a team a lot of times to pull something off. So understanding your weakness or where you might not have the greatest strength, and bringing someone in to assist. I'm telling you, maybe look into finding a director who will work with you and help put you at ease with the camera. But I would also recommend recording the audio.
I agree. I think in the right like these particular applications with a condenser mic and that, these are things that you can get later. But I think that you need to, I would look at Audacity. First off, that would be my first recommendation, or even your phone. Use the voice recorder on your phone and play back, get in a quiet space and just, talk and see where you're at. Edit the editing, the ums, the oops, and whatever, those can be edited out. You can get to the point where you can get it very polished. So just don't be afraid.
Yeah, the phones today are amazing. So you've got a great recording device in your hand, most likely. Just about everyone does, right? Even if you've got an old phone from 5-6 years ago, they still are great recording devices, and it's a good thing to start with. So go for it. Before we go too further, I did get a comment last week we were talking about different writers and how we were really focusing on creative writing. And got a comment from Michael in Fullerton, who is a technical writer in the airline industry. And Michael wanted me to know that, hey, not all technical writers are non-creative. I work very hard to put creativity into my instruction manuals. So, all right. My apologies to you, Michael in Fullerton.
Yeah,
That's
good on
great.
you, Mike.
So it makes me think of, he's in the airline industry. I've seen some funny airline videos now, you know, when you get on to wear your seatbelts, where they do song and dance and the whole thing.
Yep.
So, hey, you're right. Maybe he did those. I don't know.
Maybe.
But all right, Michael.
We got you.
All right. What else you got? I know we got a couple more questions.
The next question is from Anonymous, and they ask, can you guys go back? Can you go further into your background?
Okay, sure. Well, more than we did last week, I guess, huh? I guess you probably really want to know about my writing background more than anything. So I'd mentioned I moved to Hollywood. I was writing theater. I moved to Hollywood in 1991. I was going to go to film school. I wanted to be a director. I met up with some guys who were going to the school already, and they were like, "Don't do it." I learned more working on a movie set than going to this school. So they talked me out of starting school at that time, and we opened a production company. And we realized quickly that our ideas, however good they may be, we were nobodies. No one was going to give us money, $1 million to go make a movie in 1991. These 20-year-old kids. So we had to learn to produce, start producing back then. And had a great partner. Michael Akers at De Novo Productions was the company that we'd started, and he was a writer. That's what he wanted to do. And when I showed up, I was interested in, at that point, everything I'd written, I'd gotten the idea and I'd written it, but I'd looked at it more as a vehicle for me to direct or to act or both. So it was very self-centered. It's for selfish reasons that I was doing that writing. So I didn't look at myself as a writer in that sense. He did, and he had great ideas, and we collaborated on a lot of things. On our first feature he had written, it was called The Coins, and we got it picked up for production within months. And we just had a great working relationship. We wrote a pilot television series and collaborated on another 5 or 6 films, one of which I still have today that was never produced, or we never took it anywhere, but it's the quintessential, like everyone who goes to Hollywood to be in the industry, at some point in their career, they make or write a script, whether or not it's produced or not. Everyone writes it on the horrors of Hollywood, the trenches of Hollywood, so to say.
Sounds familiar.
And their experiences with some of the crazy and the ludicrous and the illegal and the just it can be a cesspool. So everyone writes that script, and we wrote one, and we didn't ever do anything with it. And I want to make it now. It's so funny to go back and look at. It's a little dated, but so like I went on from there and started producing films. And when I started producing, people were hiring me to produce their movies. I was kind of a hired gun. I would always come in and usually doctor the script, rewrite the script 90% of the time. So I have been the script doctor on 50 plus feature films that have been produced and distributed worldwide. I have helped launch production divisions in 2 different companies over the last 20 years, where I was responsible for production and development. So it was a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of rewriting. So yeah, I've seen a lot of things like that in the writing world. I say things like that, I mean the good, the bad, and the terrible.
Sure.
So, and as a hired gun, I got to tell you, look, I've made my fair share of Alan Smithy films. If you're not familiar with that is the credit that someone in the film industry gives themselves because they do not want to be named in the credits. I've also got a few of my films that I wish I would have been Alan Smithy. So we all have our good, our bad. It's just kind of the nature of the business. When it is such a giant team effort, you don't always have the final say in anything. So,
Understandable.
but yeah, I've been at this since 1991, anonymous, and love to get some more specific questions from you. I hope you're following us on all our social media. Everybody, make sure you are at Hollywood Trenches. That's our Instagram, right? And you can find us from the Trenches of Hollywood at Facebook.
Yep.
And you see right there, teddaviesartistry.com. You can go there, get a link to YouTube. And of course, we're streaming podcasts. Wherever you get your podcast, you'll find us. So be sure to subscribe and send us those questions. Love to get some more. So is that it? We have any more questions or we're done with those?
Yeah, we do. We've got one more from Mr. Witzman. It's actually more of a statement, but it says, that's the ticket. Show us how a real project goes from start to finish. Love the show. So
thank you, Mr. Witzman, for tuning in. That's the idea. We want to do that. We're going to show you or talk about the process from beginning to end. And in fact, we could start on that right now. I think that it really is, there's two processes to talk about. There's the process, first off, of creating the story, taking that idea and turning it into a complete story. Second is the process of then taking that story, that idea, that outline, and molding it into whatever media you're trying to put it out in. Now, like for me, I'm a screenwriter, so when I come up with an idea, it's usually in the framework of, I want to make a movie about this. This is the story. This is the idea. But for me, the process is, it's even as someone who works as a writer, I don't find myself struggling to find the basic ideas to start a script. I'm surrounded by them. I write down ideas all the time when they come to me. I've got notebooks full of them. People are always pitching me ideas as well, as I had mentioned last week.
Yep.
So there's never a shortage of ideas in the well, but it's what you do with that idea and how you turn it into something that people will relate to, be interested in, be attracted to. That's the thing. And like, I don't want to make this show about English 101 or creative writing 101. I'm thinking, but if you have questions on structure, specific development of structure, I'd be happy to address those, send them to us, and we can get into those details. But I think people are more interested in possibly where the steps go or what my steps are. And that would be, I'm a big outline person, and I think that's important with everyone. But most people will tell you, and you read a lot of script writing books, and it's interesting that they say create this first, and that's the log line. So a log line is a sentence or two that really encapsulates your story, your idea. It introduces the idea, the character, the conflict, hinting at resolution. And is it enough to entice someone to want to read your script? Now, the log line in Hollywood is a tool to get people to read your script. I think that everyone has a idea of a log line in the beginning, but to start as the first thing for your script, For me, I just never related to that. For me, it's my log line would be a treatment, or a synopsis, paragraphs, because I'm still developing the idea. It's still very early in the stages. So I know that there's a level of just free writing when I first create this idea, but it's never always just the log line. The log line is important, and you'll use that later, and that's a sales tool, is what the log line is. I mean, let's be real. You're selling it to the readers, and you're selling it to the publishers, or you're selling it to the studios or producers. That's what it is. It's the tag, the sale. This is it. Hey, look at this juicy morsel. Don't you want to dive right in and read it all? So you get that a lot in the world. It's like, well, what's the log line? That is important, but I think what's even more important is to have a complete story before you create this log line.
I agree with that completely.
And that goes with an outline. Yeah, I'm an outline guy. I like to create an outline because, look, I'm writing scenes, right? I'm writing moments in time, and nothing captures that the way I work better than my outlines. And outlines. How about you? What tools do you use to get started?
Well, I'm very much an outline writer as well, but I outline with like we were saying, stream of consciousness. I usually pick up, this is gold. These are gold. $2 or $3 at the dollar store, whatever. Just get yourself some of these, at least in my eyes. I think it's a great way to. Some people like spiral notebooks, whatever, but I mean, there's a real method to what I do. I'm very much. You hear about method actors. I'm very much a method writer. I've got a cigar. I've got the cup of coffee, maybe a scotch, depending on what time of day it is. I'll be outside because if I have a cigar. But if I'm inside, I sit down, favorite chair, chill out, and I'm writing. And I write stream of consciousness. I just let it go. And then I'll start going through and really pinpointing the details of what I'm doing and what the characters do. And it's a real it's almost surreal in a way, because it's almost like I'm channeling the story, if that makes any sense. Does it make any sense to you? Do you feel that way sometimes?
I thought you were trying to channel Shakespeare with this posh setup that you've got to put yourself in to be able to write.
Well,
Cigars, scotch, slippers,
you've got to
puppy
be
at your
comfortable.
feet.
Right, exactly, right. The fire going. But you have to build
apparently I've been doing it wrong.
You've got to build it very comfortably for you. Whatever works for you. If you like being in slippers or whatever while you're writing, great, do it. If you want to be in flip-flops on the beach, do it. No problem. But get to the point where you're in that relaxed state that you can actually, go ahead. What were we going to say?
I've found myself under the gun, crammed into a little tiny office compartment on a honey wagon, which is a big long RV with these little dressing rooms in it, in there punching out pages that are going to need to be shot in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
No cigars, no scotch, no. I mean, it's a folding chair, a catering folding chair. Yeah. So laptop barely fits on the vanity.
I got it. Well, in that circumstance, I mean,
first world problems.
Exactly. But here you are, you're trying to, and again, when I'm writing, it's not necessarily to be on set. It's not necessarily to do that. It's to get this idea down. When you're writing, in some cases, it's very much, you're already on set. You're already on, in studio, whatever. So it's a different dynamic too. And that, all due respect. But we're both trying to achieve a goal. Mine is just simply, I want to be more relaxed when I do that. So
yeah, I mean, really though, this is about the birth of the idea.
Yes.
I'm not crammed in a trailer at that point. The birth can happen anywhere, folks, at any time. Carry a notebook. I write things down all the time. It's like you. Ted,
Yep.
I have notebooks everywhere, or they're everywhere. You can really archive a lot of my life through my notebooks for the last 30 years for sure. So yeah, I'm an outline guy. That's the process. I get that outline down, that you're creating your characters. Usually you've got the conflict in mind when you create the whole thing. At least I do. That's most stories to me usually come from the conflict, not the character. Some people are like, oh, this is a great character, I want to make a story about them, and they're going to be a this or that. So that is not where I always start. I'm more of a conflict kind of person. That's what comes to mind first. Regardless of what you create first, it's create that outline and figure out where the story is going. You need to know where it starts.
Absolutely.
Don't worry about trying to spell out the acts right now. They'll come naturally. In fact, I'll tell you, I have been in a situation where I was brought in to adapt this novel, and it was massive. A medical mystery, drama, conspiracy, murder. I mean, it was just this massive piece. And that was a point where I was working with 2 other writers as well. That, again, a situation where they were stuck. And I came in as fresh eyes. And one of the first things I did is I took their outline and we created note cards of the scenes, and then we took those note cards and we just threw them in the air and they fell on the floor, and as we picked them up, we posted them in that order on the board, and we created this non-linear story that helped inspire them to make new connections. And we were able to, we didn't leave it in that complete mess, but we did bring certain pieces together, and we were able to see the story in a whole new light, and how we were able to make connections easier for the audience, and give this little bit of suspense that you felt like, oh, I already know what's going to happen, but you don't know it all. You only saw part of that earlier. So that was always that was a great exercise. But the outline, it was all about the outline. They were struggling to get through the thing, and everyone does. You don't always have all the nuances, and that's why there are always multiple drafts, right? It's just getting that idea. It's getting through the idea the first time, just plowing through it. That's one of the most important things, is getting to the end. And you can populate the middle, whether it's the second, first, third. A lot of people are writing 5 acts now. You can populate those later as you're developing the script in the script form, not necessarily the outline. But you get your key elements down, and that's my blueprint right there. It's not always the log line. Look, if you're a log line person, some people might be, and they immediately create this image and they can give you an amazing log line. Those people usually work in advertising. And they're really great at writing 30-second spots and quick promos, and they're able to just create. Some people in Hollywood, that's what they do, is they create amazing log lines and synopsises and treatments of people's work.
Let me ask you this. Let me interject a bit. Would you consider log line, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking this, is a log line the same thing as an elevator pitch?
Log line is the first sentence or 2 of your elevator pitch. So yes, you hope that your elevator pitch is 5 minutes or more. The log line is really the bait. You're hoping to get them to want to hear a little bit more. So in a manner of speaking, it is your super 2-second, 2-sentence elevator pitch. But you need to have a 5-minute one together too. You want to have a synopsis.
You want the hook to set, when you're fishing. So
look, what you got to decide. Like, if you get an elevator and they're going to the 20th floor and you're on the first floor, you pull out the synopsis. Now, if they're going to the 3rd floor, you got the log line, or you follow them to their office. But that could be dangerous.
But I think that you're probably correct with it. I know that you're correct, because I know that once adaptions, everything else are done, the log line really has to be. I really think it's at the end. I really do, to really make a punch. to complete the project.
Well, all of those things that you hear about producers and readers, I was a script reader off and on, had to pay the bills, and I would cover scripts for different agencies. I freelanced for it was a company contracted out to different agencies, and we would read scripts and write coverage for them, and make recommendations to the agents on what we thought of it. We weren't the end all by any means. They were usually covered 3 times a script, and they would take the coverage of 3 different readers and then decide if someone higher up would read the script, like the assistant to the agent, and then they would do their own coverage. Then maybe the agent would read it. And so, I mean, it's a process. So it was great that it's a process, because it was a paying gig to read and write coverage for scripts. So, and you got to read so many scripts and read and see different styles, and really just fall into the world of script creation, and compare and contrast what different writers were doing. And usually if they got to the point where I was reading it, they were good. They were at the point where these agents were deciding whether or not to bring this person on as a client or to package this film for them. A lot of times it wasn't always just to make them a client. It was like, okay, who can we pitch this to in our agency and put this film together? What other agents do we need to bring? So it was almost like a technical analysis for the company, is what it would be. It's like, okay, how does this break down? Okay, so these characters are this and this and this. Oh, well, we've got these people in our ranks, our stable, and we can put them into this role. It's perfect for them. So yeah, a lot of analysis going on behind the scenes. It's not just like, oh, that's a great idea, let's make this movie. Yeah, no, that doesn't really happen quite like that. But yeah, it's have that pitch ready. Logline, they're important if you want to sell it. That's your pitch. But I don't say you need to write that first. I think for me, my process personally is I outline it out, write it in a notebook usually, then turn that outline into a synopsis, and then I start the script. A lot of times I skip the synopsis. I just go right into the script and just start writing and
get it down. Yeah.
Get it down. And if I get stuck on one section, I've got the outline, I create the scene and I put some characters in. And if I get stuck, I skip ahead. I just go right to the next scene.
Yeah.
And because I have an idea of where this movie's ending. So I don't need to fill this first draft in with everything. It's such a good feeling to be able to get to the end of a first draft, even though it's maybe 50% complete, to see that you have all those basic elements in there that you can go back and massage and turn into the final product. But yeah, I'm an outline guy for sure. And sometimes I go straight to script. Sometimes I'll do a synopsis. Not always, early in my career I did, because people are always telling me, oh, these are the steps. You create the log line, you create the synopsis, you create the outline, you create the, so it's like, I kind of don't do that. I'm the outline guy, straight to the script most of the time.
Yeah. Well, you've done enough that you know who you are when you're, as far as your process and everything. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. And I think that people, they want to start the script and they'll read a lot of books on screenplay writing, or they'll take a class, and you get a regimented path to follow and little milestones to get to before you start writing the script a lot of times. And I don't know, for me, I'm just not that patient. I'm ready to get to it. I don't want to stifle, look, because I know how difficult it can be to get all those pages down. Even if you're the most inspired writer and you're loving it and the pages are flowing, sometimes they flow too much and that final page gets further and further and further away. Which isn't a bad thing. Hopefully what you're adding is really adding to the story. And you should be in these early drafts, just pouring everything out and just blah onto the page.
Yeah.
And then you go back
Then
and
organize.
yeah. But it is so important, and it's just such a great feeling and accomplishment to get to that last page, fade to black, and credits roll. So that feels great, even though it's not ready to send out, but that is a good push, good motivation to get right back to it and start that rewrite, draft 2.
Like I was saying, the stream of consciousness thing for me is I think it's just the way that I can get the ideas out. And I told you this before in the last episode, is I start out with a picture. Usually I'll draw one picture of the scene first, and then that way I know it's like an instant recall for me. But that's me as an artist. I mean, that's we're very much structured in our ways of just thinking, and I think that works for me. So, but you were talking about log lines, and the reason why I asked about the elevator pitch is because we hear that a lot in comic books and in novels, and what's your elevator pitch? You hear that it's a lot easier than saying a log line. Log line's more into your genre, into your experience or your profession. And my first experience, to be honest with everybody, was when we were in California. When you and I were writing with Retrieve and everything, getting that set up, our log line. And that was a very good, it was an awesome experience because it wasn't easy. I mean, we were going through back and forth and back, 20-minute session turned into an hour easily of what we were. And I don't think we got 4 lines that, all right, this works. But it took a lot of time. Collaboration's important, as you know, but boy, that was, and it was different. That's why I asked about the pitch, because the elevator pitch is very much a detailed breakdown of what your story is, if the people are willing to listen. And that log line, that hook, that bait, if you want to call it that, is key. And you taught me that, because I really wasn't thinking in a 2 sentence or 3 sentence blurb. I was thinking synopsis, 8 to 10 sentences for a paragraph, and boom, boom, the whole,
Well,
that whole thing. So,
like I said, the log line is it's a marketing tool for your piece. So,
and it's essential. It's essential.
And how many artists are thinking about marketing? They're not, so I mean, but it's a great creative experience creating that log line. It really forces you to take your giant idea and sum it up quickly. And because really,
and you're pinpointing, you've got it, you have this funnel, and then, your laser sharpness on that to get it to the point where it's believable, and it's something that people can digest,
right.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like I say it's a marketing tool, and it is. And you're trying to get someone to read your script, and you hope that the log line gets them to want to read the script, and you hope then that the first 10 pages gets them to want to read the rest of the script. So there's little stepping stones that people talk about in the industry, and they're true. There were so many scripts that I could only read the first 5 to 10, 12 pages. And I just knew it wasn't for me. It wasn't what we were looking for at the company. It wasn't, not saying it was bad, but it just wasn't, who knows, it might've gotten better. But when you have 35 scripts given to you on Friday, and on Monday, you need to come in and know about all 35, whether they're worthy of moving forward with or not, because another 35 will be there on Monday waiting for you. So it's you got to be interesting, you got to be exciting. Look, a movie is you think about it, how many movies have you seen where 10 minutes into the movie you don't know what the hell's going on? There aren't many, because they don't get made.
That's right.
Or they're just boring. They're just so boring. So many people want to open their movie with excitement, right? I just saw it's fall now, and Halloween had just happened, and there were these countdowns of best opening scenes in horror movies, and they all have that. They all want that, just grab you from the beginning. You read one of those scenes and 3 pages, not 10, you're not putting it down.
Right. And you're there. Yeah.
And not every movie is or idea might have that exciting beginning that you have laid out, or maybe it's because you're thinking chronologically. Maybe a good exercise then is to mix up those scenes and look at some nonlinear piece that you might be overlooking that might add that little pizzazz to get the eyes locked in the beginning. See, and now I feel like I'm talking to you as an agent, and
well, but in some respects that's okay, because some people on this podcast probably want to hear that. I mean, that's realistic. I don't think I don't think that people would take it in the wrong way. I think it's great. I think it's terrific.
I don't want to stifle anyone from what they're currently doing if it's working for them. But once you get it to a point where you're ready to send it out and you're ready to have it published or produced, you want to make sure that it's interesting and that you hook people in the beginning. You get them to buy in the beginning, the first act, they're going to finish it. They're going to force themselves through it. Usually, even if it goes off the rails, they're going to like, okay, how did this happen? Why did they're interested enough in your characters and your conflict that they have to see some sort of resolution. Hopefully you have it in your script, or else they won't read anything else that you send them.
Were there ever times where it would be like a script light? You wouldn't have the full script, you just have the first 30 pages, or did they always mandate it? Is that how it works?
No, it would, if it got to me, it was a script.
Okay. 100, 200 pages.
And back in the day, no. Think of it this way. The rule of thumb for a movie is it's a minute a page, right? A minute of screen time per page. So running times of movies, 90 minutes used to be the standard, 2 hours, and then they shrunk down to 90, and now they're up to 3 when you look at these superhero movies. It's insane. But an hour of that is special effects that are you can write the scene. It's funny too. I'll get a hold of one of these. If you haven't seen a heavily effects heavy movie, the script is interesting because not the shooting script. So the shooting script is the final script that we have on set, and it is loaded with everything. It's got all the camera angles that we're trying to get. It's got audio notes. It's got effects notes. It's got how we're going to be shooting the effect, what technique we're going to be using. It is really kind of the Bible on set as to how it's all going to go down. That, and a lot of times it's accompanied with storyboards. So you read, this is the shot that we're trying to get. Here's the storyboard. This is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So when a script would get to me, it would be a complete script. And in the 90s, I was getting actual hard copy scripts to read. Nowadays, it's all digital, of course. But so when I say 35 scripts, they were all 100 pages approximately. So think that's 100 minutes of screen time. But no, I would get full scripts, and they were 100 pages, was kind of the average. And that would be a 92, 93, 94-minute movie usually back in the 90s. And so I think really, as a screenwriter, that's you're aiming for the 90 to 100 page realm if you're looking to do a feature film, and it can go up from there. So it's entirely up to you. And look, really, you could be shooting a 90-minute movie and have 200 pages. It depends on the kind of detail that you put into the film. I don't know if you've heard the story of Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction script.
No.
So he and Lawrence Bender go into Jersey Films to meet with Danny DeVito, who ultimately produced the film. And Quentin Tarantino delivers I think it was close to 300-page script. We have to look that up. We have to find out how many pages it was. For Pulp Fiction, it was thick, and plop that thing down on DeVito's desk, and he looks at it, and he's like, "Are you kidding me, son? How long is this movie?" And he's like, in Tarantino-esque, he just starts talking about the story, how it's got to be told. And DeVito asks him about maybe editing it down, because this is long. I'm trying to make
massive,
a 2-hour feature maybe. And he refused. He's like, "No way, we're not editing anything out of this." But now you look at it when it's shot, the running time of the film, a couple hours.
Yeah.
So, but imagine the immense detail that he had put in there. It was a shooting script, basically. He had laid out every shot, every angle, every shot, everything in his script. But he's a director, so he not only created the story and how he envisioned it as the writer, he then was laying out the technical schematics of pulling it off in real life, and creating that fantasy world that he's put on pages, and building it in the middle of Hollywood. And he did it.
Yeah. And as they say, the rest is history. Yeah.
So that's it. That's how many pages you're kind of aiming for when you're writing a script. Think a page a minute is the running time.
That's good. Let's learn something new. Very good. I did. That's good.
Northern Grounds Coffee. Fresh, artisan roasted, small batch coffee with pop culture flair. The finest organic suspension ever devised.
Wanted to point out that there is no playbook really to the process or your process. Everyone is a little bit different, but there are two different processes, I think, when you're creating what you're creating. There's the process of creating the idea, wherever you get it. As we talked about, I get them from everywhere. Whether you dream your ideas, you read about your ideas, you are inspired by something you see, that's the first part of it, harnessing that idea and molding that into your story. And that could be, as you and I are similar, we both create an outline. I like to then go right into the script writing process. You, on the other hand, do your stream of conscious writing.
Yep. Just get it down, get that ink flowing, Yep. It works for me. But like you said, there's all different avenues on the journey. So.
But I love that we're both creating different projects. We start the same way, but at the end of the day, I'm creating a screenplay, and a lot of times you're creating a comic book or a novella.
Yep.
Something different beasts, but starting
it's still storytelling though. Period.
So this is where the processes change, is then when we go into the actual process of writing the piece. I go right into writing a screenplay. You go into whatever it is. Now, you said you draw the characters first, or you get a visual.
I do. I use the margins of the paper, and I'll go in and I'll sketch out nuances. Like I was saying earlier, that there might be a character, the way that they cough or the way they sneeze or something, little, just little details like that might add to the story later. And, I'll visit those as I'm writing in more detail throughout the course of the onslaught of ink on paper. So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, again, I go right into from the outline to writing the script. And when I do that, there are some things that steps I take at that point. Then I solidify that storyline And if it's a screenplay, a lot of times at this point, I want to identify my audience.
Yeah.
Who is it that I'm creating this for? Kids? Is it teenagers? Is it young kids? Is it adults? Is it what is it? There's an audience out there. You hope there's an audience for what you're creating.
Yeah, right.
So you identify that and keep that in mind while you're working on it. If you're really trying to sell it to a specific audience, you don't want to drift out of their realm in any way. And that really is like the next thing is determining those parameters of the project.
Yes.
For me. So
is it live action or is it episodic? Is it anime? What I mean, there's all different things for you, for your genre. You can create amazing visual epics with what you're doing, with what you do. With what I do, it's a little different. It's more of a in the mind when you're reading. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but for you though, script writing, it could go literally right to a movie production, right?
Yeah, you hope so.
So,
that's what you hope. But it's always multiple drafts. Like I said, it never seems to be finished. You always find notes for yourself. But these are just two processes, folks, that he and I go through. There are so many other ways that people create and are inspired. And I'm really looking forward to next week, folks. Our guest get to hear about how he was inspired and got inspired to write. Author David Putnam's going to be with us, best-selling novelist.
Awesome. Yeah.
And he's got a character that he's created, Bruno Johnson, in a series of books that are just awesome. So he's going to be with us next week, and we're going to ask him about his process, how he gets his ideas, where they come from, what he does to get it into his novel form. What are the steps? Does he create a logline?
Yep. And in his background, it's awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, best-selling author David Putnam is going to be with us next week. Talk about all of that great stuff and give us a little insight into his career, his latest projects, and of course, his process. So, folks, if you are an aspiring novelist out there, send us your questions for David, and we'll be sure that we take the time to have him respond to you. There's a great opportunity here for you to touch base with a really great guy, an amazing author, and I'm looking forward to that next week.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be good stuff.
Well, I feel like we are out of time. It's went fast. I'm sorry, everybody. That was really quick. I don't feel like we really got into a whole lot, but we did get some questions answered, and that's what we're here for. So, little future shows. David's coming. After that, we've got some screenwriters coming in and some writer-directors coming in. Also, we've got a big treat for you coming in a handful of weeks. A multiple Emmy Award winner, Academy Award nominee, writer producer is going to be with us. I'm not going to tell you who just yet, but he is going to take a little bit of time and also pop in and answer some questions. So be sure to follow us, and you got all of our social media handles. There are at Hollywood Trenches on Instagram, on Facebook, From the Trenches of Hollywood. You can find us at Ted Davis Artistry on YouTube. You also see me, Craig Hall E. Wood. That's Craig Hall E. Wood on Twitter. TedDaviesArtistry.com. Folks, we're everywhere. So you have no excuse not getting a question to us. So be sure and send them out, and look forward to getting them. What do you got for us, Ted?
I think that's it, man. I look forward to everybody sending us your questions. It's great. This has just been a great experience. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait for the next few weeks. It's going to be an absolute blast. It's going to be an absolute blast.
Yeah, and I wanted to also say that we was Mr. Whitsitt, was that right?
Witzman.
Mr. Witzman. Yep. Hey, look, so we kind of touched base on the creative the beginning of the idea today, but we are going to be going through the stages from here on out all the way to creating that Bible deck for your show, your screenplay, your novel, whatever it is that you're going to be trying to pitch. Once it's finished, we're going to go all the way through it, all the way to the end. And it's going to be great because along the way, the guests that we're going to have coming in are going to be contributing at different levels of the process. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be great. Look forward to your questions. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week, right?
Keep writing. Have a great week.
So long, everybody.
Northern Grounds Coffee. Fresh, artisan roasted, small batch coffee with pop culture flair. The finest organic suspension ever devised.